Greetings all from Azeroth Court. Zilgris here again, my ne'er-do-wells. And I just finished watching the series final of The Boys, Season 5, Episode 8, Blood and Bone. And I'm not really going to do a summary here. I'm just going to hit the high points and give my thoughts. Well, it was a wild ride in many ways, and a disappointing ride in some other ways. First of all, the rumors about Queen Maeve showing up, those didn't happen. The rumors about a post-credit scene or two setting up Vought Rising or The Boys Mexico, possibly. That didn't happen. The Deep did indeed die, so he wasn't in any post-credit scenes. And he met a satisfying end, in my opinion, at the hands of Starlight. Well, a combination of Starlight flinging him into the ocean after they had a battle, and his aquatic friends turning on him, as was set up in the last few episodes. And the Deep stayed true to his man-child characterization throughout the series, all 5 seasons, and the scenes he was in in the spin-off Gen V. He couldn't take any responsibility for what he did. When he confronted Starlight, he still blamed her and Homelander, who had turned on him by that point, and everyone else for his many, many mistakes. And he died because of it. And earlier in the episode, Homelander told him, like, when he was saying how loyal he still was, wanted a second chance, wanted to be one of Homelander's crusaders. Why would I need you? You're just a perverted fish fucker, and that's all you've ever been. Yeah, use my French, as Frenchie would say. But yeah, satisfying ending for the Deep. Now, a non-satisfying ending for the Gen V cast. We did get to see all 3 girls, though. Well, I should say 3 of the 4. We didn't get to see Kate. We didn't get to see the full male member, well, fully male member, Sam. They weren't in it, but the other 3 were. And they got settled off quite early in the episode to take a bunch of survivors of the massacre there from the focus group last episode to Canada, which was kind of funny. And that was it because Gen V's been canceled. I guess we're going to get no resolution to their storylines. And I do know that the actor that plays Sam, he's already accepted a role in another show, apparently. It's either him or the male version of Jordan, I believe it's him. And, well, that's that, I guess. Bit disappointing. One character that didn't get their comeuppance, at least in my opinion, was Sister Sage, who orchestrated Homelander's rise to power and had her own genocidal plan to destroy Supes and humans alike. All she did was get depowered by Kimiko, who did indeed get a version of Soldier Boy's irradiating blast. And now she's like supposedly average, maybe even slightly stupid. Like she lost her mental powers. Then she went off to Harry Potter land, and that was the last we saw of her. So that really didn't sit well with me because she's right up there with Stan Edgar and Homelander as the 3 most Machiavellianly evil characters in the whole series. And the fact that after her orchestrating Homelander's rise to power, and her own genocidal plan on top of that, well, double genocidal plan, for such a petty reason that she never really was punished, didn't go to prison or didn't die, just quote unquote lost her powers, which seemed to torment her anyway at the end. Yeah. Plus all the stuff she did in Gen V with Godolkin, aka Cypher. Yeah, that didn't sit right with me. That really didn't. She's responsible for oppression, attempted double genocide, murders, plots, all sorts of things. So, yeah, I didn't like that. Another character that I alluded to earlier also didn't really get their comeuppance in any substantial way, except for the suffering they've had the last couple of seasons. With Stan Edgar, he's back as the interim CEO of Vought, though the new administration has brought back the Bureau of Superhero Affairs, so they're keeping a tighter rein on him. The previous president's now back in power after Ashley was impeached, for her whole role in the Homelander slash Vought debacle. So she's going to prison, even though she did have a change of heart and help the boys sneak into the underground tunnels to get into the White House during Homelander's address. Ashley's done some bad things, but in my opinion, not of the level of Stan Edgar or certainly Sister Sage recently. Yet she's the one going to prison, and her arranged marriage hubby there, the old father, love that character by the way. I wish we had more time with him than just one season, and also wish we had more time with the dynamic between him and Ashley than just one season. Great character, great actor, great presentation, but he was killed by Yui and Mother's Milk. Ashley got like this titanium or something or other ball gag for him, because he was screaming and breaking the one where she was like, having the role play with him, and Mother's Milk strapped it all around him, his mouth, when he tried to do the sonic scream there and blew off his head, and he's dead. So that's unfortunate. I would have liked to seen him in the spinoff possibly if Odd Mexico is still happening, but I guess not. And another character who probably should have got their comeuppance was Soldier Boy, but we didn't see him again, so he's back on ice. Even though, like, killing him or having him go to prison or something really wouldn't affect Thought Rising there, because it's a prequel. Kind of like how with Star Wars, you have characters like Vader and Obi-Wan and stuff, they appear in the different prequel series. We know they're dead, but their stories have ended. We're just filling in the gaps. Same with Emperor Palpatine and such, but, well, I guess they felt the need to save him, maybe for Mexico or any other spin-off. They seem to have wrote the Gen Z characters out of it, but I guess he's more popular. But still, just because the characters got popular doesn't mean he's still not an a-hole. Look what he did to Mother's Milk's family. He never got really paid for that. People say, oh, well, he ended back in storage and Homelander betrayed him. Yeah, but the stuff Homelander's done the last few episodes was direct, he was directly responsible for it by giving him the compound V1. Oh, well. Like Edgar and Sister Sage, he really didn't pay for his crimes, so that was disappointing. But Homelander paid, besides Oh Father in the Deep, especially, had a lot of other, crimes with other longest surviving evil soup. Um, Homelander paid because during his address, he went off the rails. This is at Easter and said he was God. He was going to burn the world to cinder and kill all the non-believers. Then Kamiko Ryan, who came back, who denounced him earlier in the episode where Homelander confronted him, and Butcher, they fought Homelander in the White House, the camera knocked down, but it was still recording. And all the people ran out after Ashley let them all in, as I said, through the secret tunnels. And they were basically like fell into Ofather's trap. And the three of them fought Homelander. Kamiko really couldn't do her energy blast there. She was doing it all on the premise that it was generated by rage. Though she did rage out, and when Sister Sage had told her earlier they're about Frenchie and did the zap Sage, so that kind of contradicted the fact that she had to be at peace there to do it, according to the ghost of French or vision or whatever appeared to her. Anyway, she eventually zaps Homelander, Ryan, and Butcher all get caught in the blast. Homelander loses his power. In my opinion, Homelander came to a fitting end because he realizes he has no power anymore. He begs Butcher for his life, and Butcher starts beating him up. He's a better hand-to-hand combatant now that they're on equal footing. And Homelander says he will even do like sexual favors for him, or he'll eat his poop or do whatever he wants him to do, just to let him live, not to kill him. So he kind of shows himself to be the ultimate coward. So once stripped of all his powers, as Butcher tells him when he says, "You can't do this to me, I'm the Homelander," before caving his skull in, popping it off with his brains everywhere with a crowbar. Good nod to the comic books. Butcher says, "No, mate, you're nothing." And, well, Homelander dies. That's the end of Homelander, and a fitting ending, though there were some rumors that he would remain in a bunker stripped of his powers. But I feel this is fitting enough. The stripping powers, surviving, but also, him seeing the world move on But it might have been good, but it wouldn't have been a definitive ending. There's always a possibility of bringing it back in a sequel or spin-off. So to see him reduced to just what he always was, a crybaby coward, now that he has no powers, well, I say that's a satisfying conclusion for his story. He also kills, like Homelander, that is, kills an Elon Musk stand-in randomly earlier when he's talking to Oh Father and the Deep, in the midpoint of the episode. I didn't really see the point of that. I think it's the Crypties politics, but it was a little funny. But so there was, and then after Homelander dies, and the Deep is dead, and Oh Father Ashley gets arrested, and impeached and moved from power. Stanley goes back in charge of Vought as the interim CEO. We never see Sister Sage again or the Gen V girls. Uh, or Maeve never shows up or anyone like that, or Soldier Boy. Then Ryan, now depowered, like Butcher, says he didn't want nothing to do with Butcher, though he does understand why he had to kill Homelander and he was a bad guy. And he leaves. And then, when they're all having a party in the other room. And then Terror there, the bulldog, Butcher finally passes on. Butcher somehow has the virus back, even though I thought they left it at that church in Florida, where the aerosol, where Homelander was originally going to give a speech. So for some reason, they never really addressed that, how they get it back. And thought Annie and Huey left it there. If they did address it, I missed it the last few episodes. And Butcher looks at the virus, takes it. Huey realizes it, goes after him. They end up back on the top floor of Vought Tower. They see the Homelander mural still there at the ceiling, hasn't been cleaned yet. Of course, only been a day or two. And Butcher has put it into the sprinkler system. Going to wait till the morning shift starts, kill all the soups there. Of course, this means, Kimiko and Annie still have their powers. They're going to die, but that's not really ever directly referenced. So Yui tells him, like, you can't let him do it. They have a fight. Yui's got a gun, and Butcher's got a trigger device, for the sprinklers. He puts it down, they fight. You know, Butcher tells Yui that he ain't got the stones to, like, shoot him, and they go back and forth. Yui does lose in the fist fight. And then Butcher hesitates when he gets the trigger device back because he looks at Yui, beaten up there and sees a younger version of himself in his mind's eye, when he used to stand up to his father. Flashback sort of thing. We don't see the father, but we see him there standing up defiantly, and he realizes, he's become, what he hated. He's become like his father. And that hesitation of just a second or two was enough for Yui to get the gun back and shoot him and kill him. Butcher forgives him for it, telling him he had no choice, and then Butcher dies. We see them at Butcher's gravesite, and then the characters all go on to a happy ending. Mother's Milk remarries his wife, and there's his daughter there. Looks like Ryan's in the background. Well, speaking of that, Ryan, we don't get to see Zoe as love interest again. The pseudo granddaughter of Stan Edgar. We don't ever see her again either. And then we have the president offer Yui a job, but Yui says he's happy with startup. He's back at the electronics store. I guess he owns it now fully. And Annie's there with him, Starlight, and she's pregnant. Though they make a big deal that they're not married, which I thought was kind of silly and kind of a political thing by Crypty. You think they would get married? I mean, they're going to have a kid, and they're like living together, and he owns a business. There's no reason they wouldn't get married. So that's kind of a little, too on the nose and silly, in my opinion. And then even though she's pregnant, something happens, there's some kind of emergency, and Annie flies off to save people, and that's basically it. Then a couple good songs, like Piano Man, and then it fades to black. We get the credits. I watched through all the credits, including the overseas ones, with the dubbing. I was hoping for these fabled final cutscenes like you see in a lot of Marvel movies, but they never materialized. Nothing advertising Gen V, or Gen V, that's gone. I should say Vought Rising or the possible Boys Mexico spinoff. None of that. And well, that was it. I think I'd classify this ending as a flawed masterpiece. I mean, Homelander did get the satisfying conclusion the character required. It showed that a bully, when stripped of their power, there is nothing. So there's a good message there. It did make sense for the character, him to die begging on his knees, once he was on the same footing as everyone else, you know. So that was good. I really think O Father was a wasted character. The actor did a great job, and he should have been in at least a couple seasons. I felt Ashley's ending there was kind of tacked on. They could have went into more detail that. I don't like the fact that Stan Edgar and Sister Sage didn't pay for their crimes. That seemed like a big cop out, especially Sage. And the lack of Maeve was a little bit disappointing. But I am glad, like there were some rumors that the Deep would survive. I'm glad that didn't happen. He kind of had to meet his end. So I give it a 4 out of 10. It did drag a little at the beginning, but I think it did everything that it needed to do. And I had heard some leaks, some that were more disturbing. That it wasn't, Homelander was going to live, and then there was the one that he was going to be in the bunker there with no power. Then there was another one that was a lot more action packed than this, but none of them proved to be completely true. But I think it did what it needed to do. It was a serviceable ending. It could have been, sure, it could have been better, but it didn't really address like and tie up all the plot threads that were set up. They just didn't have enough time, especially with taking into account Gen V. And there were some plot holes like the superhero virus, how they got it back. But overall, I'd give it 4 out of 5, as I say, or an 8 out of 10. Same rating I give the overall series, maybe a 3.5 out of 5 or a 7 out of 10, 6.5, 7 out of 10. It was good, bordering on great, but certainly not fantastic. Wasn't a complete masterpiece, and say the ending was a flawed masterpiece. I say, sure, it hit the points it needed to, but it could have done a lot more, and it really played it safe in a lot of ways. And there was a kind of a self-indulgent like scenes there, or a compilation of scenes, like at the end where you saw like all the production crew in Kimki or Kripke, I should say. So they could have put in like a scene there if they wanted to have like one of these fabled post-credit scenes. So overall, it was good, maybe very good, but not great. Certainly wasn't perfect, but I say overall did what it needed to do and provided uh satisfying ending to the Homelander saga. Anyhow, from Azeroth Court, that's it for me, all you ne'er-do-wells. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe to grow our channel. And have a good day from Azeroth Court. Farewell.